Hey, what's up, guys? I just wanted to briefly discuss Heartstopper Forever. This is gonna be real quick. It's not gonna be too in depth, but let me start off by saying that I love Heartstopper. I love the series. I did read. I think I read at least two of the first comics. I don't remember if I read the third one. But I definitely didn't read the one that was pertaining to the movie. So forgive me if I don't have as much information. Um, Anyways, Heartstopper is like the ultimate comfort show. It's one of those shows that you put on if maybe you're having a bad day or you just want to cuddle up and rest underneath a blanket, or maybe it's raining. It's that type of show. It's very emotionally comforting. The series, at least. Now, I want to give a reminder that I'm fully aware that Nick and Charlie are teenagers, they're very young. So I understand the dynamics of the relationship. I understand that they're still trying to figure each other out. They're trying to figure themselves out. They're trying to figure their lives out. And I feel like definitely in the series, they were more communicative. They just seemed a lot more open with each other. But for some reason in Heartstopper Forever, that communication wasn't there, and I'm not sure what changed exactly. It just seemed that Nick didn't really know how to communicate what he was feeling, and that caused a lot of conflict. But it was a surprise for me because I feel like that's not really like Nick. I feel like we as the audience, well, I'm speaking for myself, okay? I really did not understand what was wrong with Nick. Neither did Charlie. And Charlie was so desperately trying to figure out what was going on with Nick, and Nick just couldn't communicate for some reason. There's this scene in the beginning of the movie which really confused me, and if somebody wants to give me a little bit more information, you're very welcome to, because I did not read the comic for this movie. And some people might say, well, you should read the comic, or you need to read the comic to understand what was going on with Nick. But I feel like the movie should cater to both audiences. Audience who have read the comic and audience who haven't read the comic, because there's a lot missing here. So basically, there's this scene. I'm not sure if they were in some type of bar. And I rewatched this scene to make sure that I didn't miss anything. There's a scene where Nick is with his buddies and he takes a shot and his buddies pressure him to do more. And at first he says no. But then all of a sudden he sees his brother, David, in the distance, and he spirals out of control and takes a bunch of shots. And I did not understand what was going on internally with Nick, because I know David is annoying. I know David is an absolute jerk, okay? I also know that Nick was annoyed that David was living in the same house as him. I got that impression, right? But there was no previous indication. There was no backstory. There was no flashback. I didn't understand what exactly triggered Nick. I don't know what exactly the issue was, because we've seen Nick stand up for himself and Charlie to David in season 3. And I thought that Nick was a little bit more or less bothered with David just in general. So I'm not understanding the conflict that they were having in this movie specifically. I just feel like it wasn't very clear and it wasn't very addressed. And throughout this movie, I really did not understand what was going on with Nick. Now, I know that he had fears. I know that he was worried about not being able to protect Charlie, not being able to help Charlie, not being a good boyfriend and stuff like that. And he did communicate that to Charlie when they were in the fort. He did open up to Charlie about that. I just feel like there was more going on. So then, fast forward to their breakup. So they were at a party and they weren't really hanging out together as much. Nick was hanging out with Tara and Elle, and Charlie was talking amongst his friends. And so Charlie decides to look for Nick, and Nick is upstairs somewhere, just alone, standing alone in some random kitchen. And I do want to mention that, like, the conflict in this movie is basically teen relationships don't tend to last, and I think Nick is very insecure about that, and I can understand that. I can tell that Nick is very insecure about these things, especially because Tao and Elle had their issues, and that probably made him feel very insecure and very worried. And I understand why he would be, especially since that's probably his first relationship, right? But for both of them. So I can understand the insecurities even as a teenager. But I feel like these fears and insecurities really got to Nick's head, and he sabotaged the relationship. I'm not just blaming Nick, okay? Trust me, I'm not just coming at Nick, okay? But Charlie was really trying to figure out what was going on. Basically, they ended up breaking up because of assumptions. It was purely based on assumptions. Nick was making assumptions. He was being insecure. And instead of sitting down and having a conversation with Charlie about how he was feeling, he decided to make all these assumptions and initiate a breakup. There was a lot of confusion going on between both of them and me. Okay, because I just didn't understand where all this was coming from. Like, coming from the previous seasons and then entering this movie is like whiplash, because I just don't understand what happened to the communication, what happened to the warmth, what happened to Nick and Charlie. What happened? Like I said, if somebody wants to chime in and let me know, someone who has read the comic for this movie and knows a lot more than I do, if you can explain to me what was going on, because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that I missed, okay? So please let me know. So basically, they end up breaking up, and it's really depressing, okay? Like, I watched this movie on a day where I really needed to just lay in bed and get under the covers and watch something that was comforting. So I thought to myself, you know what? Let me watch Heartstopper Forever. I know Heartstopper Forever just came out. Let me cuddle up and watch Heartstopper, right? Thinking that I was going to get at least somewhat of a similar vibe from the previous seasons, right? Because we're talking about Heartstopper here. But no, this breakup was extremely depressing, I'm telling you. I was bawling my eyes out, okay? I was bawling my eyes out. What I don't understand is they didn't even try to talk to each other afterwards. Like, I can see, like, they wanted to, right? Charlie wanted to try, Nick wanted to try, but for some reason they didn't even talk to each other. Like, it's so bizarre. Really, it's bizarre. And I'm honestly not sure how much time passed. I'm not sure how long they were broken up before they got back together. But are you telling me they didn't talk that whole time? I think they were apart for months. If I'm wrong, let me know. So you're telling me they did not talk for months? That's insane to me, okay? That's insane. They didn't try to say, "Hey, let's grab a coffee. Let's try to talk about this. Let's try to work this out. Let's see what's going on here." No, there was none of that. These two laid in bed, depressed. Depressed as hell. It was so depressing. The way these scenes were filmed, the color, it was just, oh my God. Do not watch this if you are looking for comfort or warmth, or just don't watch this on a day where you need comfort or warmth, okay? I'm not telling you don't watch it, but and I'm mainly focusing on Nick and Charlie right now in this conversation. I'm not really focused on the other characters. I'm just, because they were barely, like, they really did not have much of a plot in this movie. So I'm mainly focusing on Nick and Charlie right now. So Nick has a heart to heart with his mother, and then Charlie sends Nick the photos that they took and says, "Hey, let's meet up at the beach." I find it strange that he didn't call or text him that. Like, they have each other's numbers. Like, it's just so, like, off. It's just off, okay? Like, I see what they were trying to do, but when you, like, think about it, you're just like, why didn't they just text each other? Why didn't they call each other or anything, or set something up? So anyway, fast forward, we're at the beach. Okay, they meet up at the beach, and basically they're like, I'm just paraphrasing, "We're meant to be together. I know that we're special, yada yada yada." And then Nick explains some of his insecurities, and Charlie explains some of what he's feeling, and then they get back together, just like that. Just like that. So they spent a lot of chunk of this movie apart, okay? A lot of chunk of this movie was spent with them not communicating clearly, which is very bizarre, okay? And then the rest of the movie was them just, being depressed. Listen, I get it. I was a teenager before. Let me remind you. I completely understand. I get the insecurities. I get the breaking up and getting back together and this and that. I understand that they were really trying to be realistic with this. I appreciate that. I appreciate the realism. However, you gotta remember, this is Heartstopper, okay? When you think of Heartstopper, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Warmth, caring, communication, understanding, patience. Even in season 3, when there was conflict, they were communicating with each other. They were there for each other, okay? Through the conflict, through Charlie's mental health struggles, through Nick's insecurities, they were communicating. That was the difference. When I think about Heartstopper Forever, I immediately think depressing, cold, distant. And hey, I'm not hating, okay? There are aspects that I did like about this film. In some ways, it did still have that Heartstopper feel, that warm Heartstopper feel that we all know. But I just felt like something was missing, or something was off. It was different. The vibe was different. And maybe that's what they were going for. Maybe they were trying to switch it up. But it just didn't feel like Heartstopper anymore. It felt like I was watching some random gay drama film. that has a dark vibe. And for those of you who watch a lot of gay films, especially over the years, especially like back then, there was a lot of dark vibes there. So that's what I was getting from this. And Heartstopper was a breath of fresh air from that. Like I remember when I first watched Heartstopper for the first time, I was expecting things to be dark. Like I was expecting things to not work out because I'm so used to that in gay films. But Heartstopper was a breath of fresh air for me, honestly. So this movie was just such a contrast, and it really slapped me in the face. I'm not even gonna lie. It slapped me in the face, and I'd rather just pretend that the season 3 ending was the official ending, honestly. Because yes, they did get together in the end. They did end up together at the end in the movie. I'm very happy about that, okay? But for some reason, it just didn't feel satisfying. And it's very hard to explain. Well, actually, I just took 16 minutes explaining why. But yeah, that's basically it. Like, yeah, they ended up together, and I'm happy for them. I'm very happy that they ended up together because honestly, I wasn't sure if they were going to end up together. Um, I'm happy they did, but it just didn't feel satisfying for me. Now, I was reading some reviews about the film, and a lot of people were having the same takes. They were saying some of the same things that I'm saying right now. Um, so I'm glad I'm not alone in this because there are a lot of Heartstopper stands that will probably defend this movie. And listen, I don't blame you. Like I said, I love Heartstopper. Heartstopper will always be in my heart. Okay, it helped me during a period, a rough time. Okay, it helped me realize that even if you're struggling with a mental illness, you can still be loved, you can still be cared for, okay? And it does not always mean that you are a burden on someone, but you still have to take care of yourself, of course. But it was nice to see that Nick was so understanding with Charlie with his mental health struggles, that I really appreciated that. Again, some of you might say you should read the comics, right? I maybe I will read the comic for the movie, right? Maybe I will. But like I said before, I feel like the movie should cater to both audiences, okay? That way everybody can understand what's going on and there's not so many missing pieces of the puzzle, and here I'm not just sitting here thinking, well, what the heck is going on? What just happened? Why did, like, I don't understand why, like, in the breakup scene, right? Why did Nick think that Charlie was angry with him? I didn't even understand that. Just because he was talking to other people at a party? It just seems so out of character. I can't. I can't. I can go on and on and on, okay? Anyway, I would love to have a discussion in the comments about this. I love talking about this, the series and the movie. Um, all opinions are welcome, okay? Maybe I will do a part 2 if I rewatch the movie, and maybe there's something I missed. Maybe there's stuff that I missed, and maybe I will do a part 2. We'll see. But anyway, thank you for listening.